Hokey religion is an ancient weapon. Weapons are no match for a good blaster at your side.
Welcome to Hokey Religion, the Star Wars podcast, episode 95. This is Tyler.
This is Michael.
We're going to talk about God knows what today.
Who knows? No notes.
Nope. We're
going off the top of our old little shrunken noggins.
There has been very little since last episode to do with Star Wars. That is all.
Yep. The end. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.
Yeah. No. What has happened since last episode? We are dangerously close to Galaxy's Edge opening at Disneyland.
Mm-hmm.
It's weeks from now.
Get to hear all the disappointed reports of how expectations are shattered
because there's too many people there.
Uh-huh.
So the reservation system for Disneyland for Galaxy's Edge opened, and of course, like any reservation system that opens for the first time, it was partially busted for most of it. Yeah, but all the reservations were snapped up within 2 hours.
Wow. Is that just for opening day, or is it for a specific time period?
No, it's through like June or July.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Not even a couple weeks, like several
months. Yeah, like the first few, basically
months.
The entire summer until school starts back.
Wow.
I think. So if you didn't know, Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland opens first in May, and they did a reservation system where you get a reservation, and that gives you a 4-hour window from your reservation that you can be there. If you leave before the 4-hour window's up, you can't come back in. Once your 4-hour reservation is over, you have to leave. I'm still really wondering how they make anyone leave.
Yeah, how do they enforce
How are they
that?
tracking people to make sure they actually leave?
Yeah.
Because I can't see there being any way of doing that. I think hotel guests get
May 31st through
access.
June 23rd.
Okay, so
not
July.
quite that long.
So July has
a little less
is
than a
open
month
before school starts back.
Yeah.
I think hotel guests maybe get extra ability to be there somehow. But yeah, so all those were snapped up, and that'll tell us how bad it's going to be for Orlando.
It does seem kind of crazy to only wait a month, or to only have the reservation system for a month, because the demand is not going to go down.
No.
After that.
No.
If anything, the demand's just going to increase because you got all these people who can't get in.
Right.
For that month, you know?
Especially for Disneyland, right? Because there's not much else there as far as Disney goes.
Well,
right. You come to Disney.
A couple other parks.
Well, yes, but you come to Disney World and you have 4 giant parks to go to, right?
Sure.
You go to Disneyland, you have California Adventure and Disneyland, where Galaxy's Edge is going to be in Disneyland.
Yeah.
So there's not really anywhere else to shove everyone else to like other parks and like, here, go do these other things instead. Not really, you can't.
Yeah, I guess.
Whereas Disney World, they're not doing a reservation system. They're just trying to open up park hours so that people will be not at Galaxy's Edge.
Oh, really?
So you know how right now, so at in the evenings at Disney World at certain parks, there's extra magic hours, right?
Yeah.
That happen. There's
There's
regular park close, and there's like an extra 2 hours, or whatever, for hotel guests and stuff like that.
Sometimes that'll be in the morning before opening.
So now they're
before it opens. Sometimes it'll be at night.
So they're going to be doing extra magic hours. I don't know for how long. But at most of the parks in the morning from like 6 a.m. to 9 before the parks open.
Jeez.
At 9. So like Galaxy's Edge. Galaxy's Edge will be available for extra magic hours will be available from 6 to 9 a.m. before it actually opens at 9 a.m.
And that's only...
including opening day.
Wow. And that's still only for resort guests.
I believe so, yes.
Right? Wow.
So
they're just trying to get people on property, period.
So like on any other property, like guess what? Here's an extra 4 hours or 3 hours at Epcot or Magic Kingdom or other places to try to get people to not be at Galaxy's Edge, basically.
Right.
But Galaxy's Edge also has the extra magic hours from 6 to 9.
Wow.
Which means I really want to try to book a hotel for opening day. I don't even have to stay at it. I'll just pay to have a hotel room,
Oh my
like
gosh.
$200. Just we can split this maybe,
Just to be able to be there.
just to be able to get in from that 6 to 9, like before the actual parks opened.
Do you think any hotels are even open?
I highly doubt it.
What is it?
There's no way.
August? Have they announced a specific date yet for
Yeah.
Orlando?
Yeah.
We did talk about it. I can't
yeah,
remember
it's
what
in
it was,
August,
though.
and I can't remember off the top of my head.
Something like that.
But yeah, so the extra magic hours from 6 to 9 would be amazing to be in there before the actual
August
parks
29th.
open.
August 29th. Okay.
But I highly doubt there's a hotel available on property
Even now?
for magic hours. Yeah, I don't know. It'd be like a cabin at Fort Wilderness.
Which is just a slab of concrete with a water hookup.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you could.
You could do that.
Do people who have the tent spots at Fort Wilderness,
Yeah.
get extra magic? Well, there
Yeah,
we
they
go.
do.
Let me just rent a tent square.
You know,
And
I've
there we
looked into
go.
it before, and
It's still hundreds of dollars per night, isn't it?
no, it's like $60 a night.
Really?
It's reasonably affordable. I mean, that's still crazy for just a tent slot, but
But for a tent slot that gets you 3 hours at Galaxy's Edge before everyone else shows up,
can you come just park
that's not a bad idea.
just your car there, not even set up a tent?
You don't even have to stay there. I would just pay to have the tent square, never use it, just so I could get into Galaxy's Edge.
You have to
for
check
3
in at
hours.
least.
I would, yes, I would do that.
But I was gonna say I've looked into that just to try it, and even just a normal day, you have to book months in advance.
Yeah,
It's crazy. It probably because it's the most affordable
true.
way to get extra magic hours and be on property and all that stuff.
Well, now I don't want to keep recording this. Now that I'm thinking about this more and more, I want to see if there's anything open that's cheap. So yeah, so Disney World is just gonna straight be open, and we'll see how big of a mess that's gonna be.
Do you think it'll be a bigger mess there than here? Because I'm thinking about the size of Disneyland, and yeah, it's small, but Hollywood Studios is small too, and that parking lot it's a mess just on a regular day.
That's true. I don't know. Hopefully, the time at Disneyland will help them work out kinks, but at the same time, like, only one of the rides is going to be open.
Yeah.
When Galaxy's Edge opens at either park, just Smuggler's Run. They're not. I don't, like we've talked about before. They're not going to be able to have like some of the street stuff that they're eventually going to have just because of the crowds. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how the expectations are met based off of just having to slim things down just for crowd's sake.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really soon. August 29th, you said?
Mm-hmm.
That's really, really soon.
No campgrounds.
Are you looking at
For that
openings right
whole-
now?
Campsites at Fort Wilderness booked 200 times in the last 24 hours. I don't know if that's any more than normal, but that whole week is
That whole week's gone.
is full.
Yeah, I think most things got booked up as soon as like the dates for opening were
29th
announced.
through the September 7th.
Yeah.
I'm looking at. There's rooms at some of the other hotels, but they're all over.
Stop giving everyone all of our ideas, Michael.
Hey, $124 for All-Star
That's not bad.
hotel
That's really
for
not
that
bad.
week.
You split it with 4 people just to have magic hours?
Jam 4 people. 158 Pop Century, Coronado 230.
That's really not bad.
I mean, for
That's really doable.
the campsites,
I'm honestly considering it.
I wonder if you could just do that one night. I wonder if
I don't. Yeah,
If it's
they might
booked.
not allow you to even do one night stays.
let's see Friday and Saturday. Talk while this loads.
Oh man, if
You're gonna listen to us book our stay at Galaxy's Edge.
you know it's a
live on the
problem when
show.
you know it's a problem when you pay as much as it costs to have passes to Disney, right? And then you're willing to pay for a
Even
hotel
more.
room to not use it just to get into Galaxy's Edge. That's when you know you have a problem, but I'm fine with it.
It's a Star Wars problem.
It's always been a problem.
All right, let's see. So still nothing for the campsites, but All-Star for that night is available.
You can do it for one night.
Mm-hmm. 154
man.
still, which is
All right, well, we need to talk about this after we're done.
So I wanna go through this and see.
See if you can book it.
I just want not actually book it. Yeah, preferred room. It's available.
That's not that much money to maybe,
Family suite 288.
That's not that much money to say split between you and myself.
I know.
Just to have a room, just to have magic hours.
$75 each.
That's not bad.
I don't have a pass, so I
You
have to
don't.
also pay
Okay,
for a park
well,
ticket.
You have other problems.
Well, yeah.
Just help pay for my room
In
so I can go
general.
to Galaxy's Edge. How about that? Does that? I can hold my phone up on Skype and you can.
Hey,
like,
2 double
see
beds. We don't
stuff.
have to sleep in the same bed. That's a plus.
Or there's just
On top of getting into Galaxy's Edge.
Right. Great. Oh.
All right.
That
Well,
really
we
is a
got to talk
problem.
about this.
All right. Well,
We can record a special late night episode from
from our
from our
hotel room.
hotel room beds,
From our separate beds.
interviewing the cleaning staff.
Great. Oh man, that's
So look forward to that. That might be happening in August.
that's a legitimate idea
That'll
that
be a
I
special
want to
episode.
explore. All right. What else has happened since last episode other than Galaxy's Edge?
We saw Endgame.
Yeah,
Is that Star Wars related?
That's Disney related. All the money goes to Disney.
This is a Disney podcast tonight.
If you haven't seen Endgame, go see it. It was fantastic. That's probably as far as we should get into that movie on a Star Wars podcast. Speaking of movies, today as of recording.
Speaking of movies,
Speaking of films,
I love films.
they're so good. All of them, the moving pictures, the
Sound, speeds,
sound speeds,
lights,
cameras.
action.
As of recording this, just mere hours ago, Disney released their plan for films for like the next god awful
Films, the plan.
Films, the plan for the next like 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
So all of their films, that unannounced films that are releasing from 2021 through 2027, which is just a shit ton of Disney live action films, untitled Marvel films, untitled Pixar films. They're all untitled.
Untitled Star Wars films
But,
also.
Yes, in that list were 3 untitled Star Wars films. 3 years from now, so in 2022, on December 16th, 22 is the current date for that. Is the first untitled Star Wars film. 2 years after that, in 2024, on December 20th, is another untitled Star Wars film, followed by December 18th, 2026, is another third untitled Star Wars film.
Mm-hmm.
So, with every year in between those being an Avatar film, because they're trying to get those out, not alongside Star Wars. Like they'll ever happen. But the Star Wars films, I mean, if you're releasing a Star Wars film every 2 years, just a year apart from each other, it has to be a trilogy, right? You would think.
Yeah.
And as far as we know, Rian Johnson has finished working on his movie Knives Out.
Yep.
Right? And he said the next project he was working on is his Star Wars trilogy.
Yeah.
So it's very possible that this is his trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't heard anything from the Game of Thrones guys about their film.
No.
They haven't even talked about it yet.
Mm-mm.
Which I guess they are finishing Game of Thrones right now, so they probably haven't been able to do anything with it yet.
Well, I mean, Game of Thrones is over. There's only 2 episodes left
I guess so.
for this current season.
But they're still doing, I don't know.
Yeah, what's after that for them.
Post stuff on it, like press and whatever else is involved with. I mean,
Probably.
maybe they're working on stuff. But I do find it weird that we haven't heard. At least Rian Johnson has talked about his, but they haven't. I can't remember them recently saying anything about their supposed films.
Yeah.
Films, right? It was plural.
I saw someone on Twitter guessing that Rian Johnson's going to be directing their movies. Their trilogy. That it's the same trilogy and they're just all involved in
They're
it.
all. That's interesting.
I don't see
But
that
he's supposed to
happening.
be like writing and directing
I don't
his
see
film.
that happening.
No, that would be weird though.
Another thing I found interesting was that, I mean, yeah, it's safe to assume that this is a trilogy. There are no spin-off films anywhere on the schedule,
Yeah, I think they gave up on that.
which sucks. I mean, there's so much potential there. I would say there's
Yeah.
more potential in the spin-off films than the new stuff. I mean, now that this Skywalker trilogy is over, new stuff is
Right.
going to have I'd say the same or even less pull than a spin-off film would
But
have.
I think that's what I think they're trying to get away from the the Rise of Skywalker is the end of the saga.
Yeah.
I think they're trying to get away from that timeline. Like they're trying to have some finality to it and be like there can be other Star Wars.
Sure.
At least film wise. I can see them doing
I'm just saying
they're
from a-
doing spin-off stuff with the TV shows. Like The Mandalorian and like the Cassian show.
Well, yeah, I'm not talking about TV shows. I'm talking about the movies. If they, I don't know, if they did a spin-off film like Obi-Wan, or, I mean, what are some of the other ones that have been talked
Boba
about?
Fett.
Yeah, I mean, that got canned a while ago, though.
Yeah.
What was that, like
Probably-
2013
Probably turned
or 14?
into probably what Mandalorian became.
True, yeah. What are some of the other spin-off films that were discussed?
I just remember
I don't
Boba
know.
Fett and Obi-Wan.
Anyway, let's say Boba Fett is, in the works, or Obi-Wan. Let's say Obi-Wan is in the works. I would say that would have more pull and more of a potential than a brand new start from scratch, unless it's something
I'm sure.
like we've talked about that goes back to the Old Republic and has some connection to canon that
Right.
we are already aware of. you
Yeah.
know?
I mean, I don't know. I feel like with the films, they're
That's another
probably
interesting
trying to
question.
get away
is-
from it and get to something new. To like, here's something else that they're trying to pull people into. But I
Well,
could see
okay,
them doing
right.
spin-off stuff like Obi-Wan and a TV show instead. I could see that being the easier route for them.
like a mini series.
Instead of trying to, despite, I mean, why I have this expectation of Disney expecting them not to rehash something when they're putting out a live action version of every movie they've already made.
That's true.
So I don't know. There's no precedence for this at all because Lion King is coming out in live action and Aladdin's coming out in live action and I think Lady and the Tramp is supposed to come out in live action.
Really?
Oh wait, it's a TV show. I think it's a live action Lady and the Tramp TV show.
What?
Yes, on Disney Plus.
With the same quality level
The
that
same
all
dogs.
these Favreau? Is that the same discussion as Star Wars?
Yeah. So
More Star Wars
right.
with the same dogs?
So I don't know why I have with that precedence. I don't see why I have an expectation for them not to rehash stuff in films, but it's like the way they keep trying to make the Rise of Skywalker be like everyone's talking about it in this very final finality
Yeah.
way. It's like they want to move on almost from it.
Yeah.
So I wonder from a film perspective if they're like, let's just get something new, a new world, a new
Well,
area.
that's
a
what
new
I was gonna ask.
Time, a new thing that doesn't have to do with this conflict, and then maybe you could get into some of that other stuff or spin-offs and TV shows instead, because it's not like they had the best success with the spin-offs so far.
Yeah.
I think that's
Well-
why I think that's why some of them got canned that were in the works, right? Is after Solo kind of became a mess.
That's the thing, though, is what they've chosen so far. They're very safe choices, I'd say. I mean, I would describe Rogue One as a kind of a safe
Right. And I guess
movie, right? It's different, but it's not
from the
it's-
story, like safe story wise, like
Yeah.
about what it has to do with.
Yeah,
deal
and
with.
it's not. They didn't make any crazy choices in it.
No. And I mean, there were the rumors that Solo was going to be 2 or 3 films. There were going to be
Yeah,
more
and there's
Solo films.
what's his name is still talking about that, or was it the girl who plays Kira?
Yeah, the
I don't remember her name.
Daenerys Targaryen, whatever the
Yeah.
actress's name is.
Amelia Clark, right? Is that
Yes,
her name?
yeah. She can't remember anything else, but she can remember Solo. If anyone knows anything about her, that's a really unfortunate joke.
She can't remember anything.
No, her brain's totally broken.
Are you really serious?
Yeah,
I did not
look
know
it up sometime.
Really?
Yeah.
She can't remember anything.
Is
this a joke or is this
no?
real?
It's a real bad situation.
Oh.
Anyways, it's just me
Okay.
making
All right.
bad, mean-spirited jokes.
Why is she an actress? Remembering things is her
She
whole
wishes
job.
she knew.
Oh no.
Sorry. Yeah, she had like a bunch of brain aneurysms, is why.
Oh,
So it's
that's nothing to laugh about.
It's really unfortunate. It just.
I think we're broken also.
No, yeah, no. From a standpoint of having any humanity in us, it's.
I don't know why I'm laughing.
Right. Because it was a good joke. That's why.
Um.
In her words, there was a bit of my brain that actually died.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. So her brain's not great.
Anyway, what was I trying to say in all that? She was mentioning.
She kept talking about
she's
Solo.
the most recent person to talk about there being more movies, I think. But
Yeah.
Alden has mentioned it before, and somebody else too. I can't remember. We also know that they were signed, or it was at least rumored that Alden was signed for a 3-movie contract.
Yeah.
Whether or not that was going to happen, that
right.
Or that they were going to actually make those other 2 movies, who knows? But that's the rumor about his contract.
Right.
So that's something else I was going to ask. Going back to the canon or the new story thing with these new trilogies or any movies beyond that. Do you see that trilogy either from Ryan or the Game of Thrones guys being, we've talked about it possibly being like a Knights of the Old Republic thing.
Right. Yeah.
Fantasy kind of based stuff. Do you see these new trilogies being completely disconnected from current canon and being all brand new?
That's what Ryan always said was his thing was supposed to be like another story in a place you've never seen before with characters you don't know. Right? That was his original pitch for it, basically, to the world.
It could still be set in a context that we're familiar with. Other than it being under the big umbrella of Star Wars, it could still be like set in a time period, or I don't know.
I mean, from the way for as little as he said, right, is, it's going to be in a place you've never seen with characters you've never met before. Like, it's just going to be another story within Star Wars. Now, it might still have the Force and stuff like that, because that's just something that happens. There's elements that are just in the universe, right?
It's like Lord of the Rings movies having elves. I mean, it's expected.
The elves are just in the world, right? It's like, so the Force is still in the world or in the universe.
So, like, think about the Silmarillion, or think about the new Lord of the Rings series that Amazon is doing right now.
Right.
They've already said it's going to be like set in the Second Age or something along those lines. So that kind of puts you in the stories that are in the Silmarillion. So it's like it's all this new stuff technically, but it's still set
within the storyline
in a time, right? In a storyline and in this context that we're all already sort of familiar with.
I don't think that's what Ryan wants to do from the way he described it.
I wonder.
That's been years since he described it, but I mean, that doesn't sound like what he wanted to do. Is he wanted to get away from?
I mean, it does make sense to give that type of story to the guy that's already kind of broken convention in a way,
right?
With Last Jedi,
yeah.
And I'm still really interested to see that, a brand new story with no connection to anything we're familiar with. I just wonder, it just seems so bizarre, so foreign.
Right, yeah, to not have Jedi or Sith or Empire or First Order or any of that.
Yeah.
Right? Like all the connecting threads, the only thing that might be a connecting thread is the Force.
Yeah.
But that's so very vague that it's...
And again, I think he's the perfect guy to do that because he can...
Right.
He thinks about things from a very... different perspective, an angular kind of way of
right. And I think we talked about this on a recent episode, maybe even last, or maybe we just talked about this personally. I can't remember. It all runs together. That
life is a blur.
Yeah. That it's very weird to think about Star Wars. I think this was something we just talked about, not on the show, is that how everyone keeps talking about the Rise of Skywalker with such finality, right? And that after this, it is almost impossible for me to think about or even conceive what it would feel like to have a Star Wars film that isn't these Star Wars films.
Yeah.
Right? where there's
That's what
no
I'm saying.
there's literally no context for that.
Yeah.
I don't have a frame of reference for that.
Because Star Wars is the Skywalker trilogy.
It's like if you think about
so
what
far.
what Ryan is sounds like Ryan is wanting to do is just make another sci-fi movie. Like there's no way for me to describe it. Like it's a high fantasy,
but somehow made
it's a fantasy. It's a space fantasy
Yeah.
that happens in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, with
But what makes it Star Wars?
yeah, that's a good question.
How is there Star Wars without the thread we've had so far? Because
Well, I
there
think
hasn't been Star Wars without this thread we've had.
I think
so
the
far.
Force, the existence of the Force, makes that universe unique.
Yeah, that's the. I mean that's the only connecting thread I can think of. But
The galaxy itself, that's not going to change.
right.
So I mean, when he says locations that we're not familiar with, okay, I guess, but it's still set in the same galaxy with the same.
Right, but so based off of what's about to happen in films, like okay, the Empire's obviously gone. They may come back in this movie. The First Order is probably like with the finality that's coming. It seems like it's like resolved. The universe is happy now, which it may or may not be. Right? I don't know how the Rise of Skywalker is going to end. It may not be all happy.
I mean, Return of the
and totally
Jedi
resolved.
implied that the Empire ended, which
Right.
we know it now that it didn't. But when
it was
that
happy
came out,
and celebration, and it was like,
Yeah.
hey, it's all done.
right?
Right. So if this one ends, it's like, hey, it's all done. It's like, okay, so what is there to then be happening? So it's weird to think about, like, because even in the Mandalorian that's coming out, you've got the Empire is involved, right? You've got this is during the fracturing of the Empire
This is
being
after
shattered,
Return of the Jedi.
and so you've got this Imperial officer or whatever on the run with some stormtroopers, and he's contracting the Mandalorian.
Yeah,
So you still got those connecting threads that have to do with the larger story.
like squeezing.
Yes. He's pumping the Mandalorian, not for information, for fun. So you've got these connecting threads from the saga, the Empire, and
More like Handalorian.
that's his pickup line. If he doesn't use that in the show, what's the point?
What's the point of the whole show?
Yeah, if he's not in a bar, it doesn't hit on somebody at some point and use that term in some way. What's the point? What has Favreau done with all of his time? If that's not in Taika's episode, what is he doing? Why even direct anything? But so you've got these connecting threads of the Empire and Mandalorians and what seems to be Tatooine, right? So all this stuff that is still
Familiar.
within the storyline.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So it's still like
That's what I'm saying. Like
it's-
even in Rogue
it's an
One,
offshoot from the main story, but tied to it because of stuff that happened in the main story.
yeah, even in Rogue One and Solo, like that stuff is
I mean-
happening because it's connected to this.
Well, yeah, right.
All these consequences that have happened because of the Skywalker trilogy. You know, the
Yeah.
Empire existing and its influence.
I mean, if you
and-
think about, like, I don't know, Endgame has me thinking about
don't say too much.
things. If you think about timelines, right?
Uh,
Too bad. If you haven't seen Endgame, you suck. I saw it last
You-
night.
you're
So
gonna-
I
you're
just
gonna
saw
talk
it.
about this now?
I'm just saying, if you think about Star Wars as a timeline,
Okay.
just think about a timeline. A straight timeline. Rogue One and Solo are directly on that timeline
Mhm.
of the saga.
Yeah.
Right. So the main characters, the story of the Skywalker saga. Obviously, Rogue One is like the prequel movie, the prequel to the original trilogy.
Yeah.
It falls directly in with that story and that
Mhm.
storyline.
Yeah.
Solo is still within the Empire and Solo's story,
And it's a main character.
and it's a main character.
Yeah.
I would almost say that maybe even Cassian is still going to be within the
Rebellion.
the rebellion
Yeah.
and all of their work. So it's still within the story that we've already seen.
Uh-huh.
Mandalorian's maybe the first one that's maybe an offshoot, like a thread off of the storyline, where it really doesn't have to have anything. It really doesn't have anything to do with the storyline, other than some of the things from that storyline have caused what's going to happen in the Mandalorian to need to happen.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's in a kind of a unique place where, let's say Rebels, for example, it was bound very tightly
It
within
had to
these
be
two
within those constraints.
big pillars that we know of in Revenge of the Sith and A
Right.
New Hope / Rogue One. Like,
Yeah.
it had to squeeze in there, and any kind of anything crazy or any kind of innovation they wanted to do with the story
Like time travel.
still had to be jammed into that story, into that main
Sure.
story, which in both of our opinions made it suck really bad, and it's terrible and no one should watch it.
Yeah.
Whereas with this, we
And even
the space it has to work in is way bigger. It's 30 years,
right.
you know, and it's, I guess you could say it's still 20 years between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. But Rebels is jammed up so close in the formation of the rebellion that it
Yeah.
doesn't give you a lot to really work with.
And even the show The Resistance is following right along with what's happening in the main storyline.
And that
from the
works
films.
based off of the story that they're trying to tell, I think.
Yeah,
That
but the
works.
whole purpose of the show has to do with the main storyline of
Sure,
of the
yeah,
saga,
okay, yeah,
right?
right.
Whereas the Mandalorian
So
the
not
Mandalorian
only
is the
is it,
first thing I can think of that is a literal actual offshoot from the main storyline.
okay, so not only is it the setting and the time it's in, but also the story that's being told, the characters and stuff.
Right.
Are
So
completely
while
separate.
Mandalorian is within a time period that we haven't seen, but it's still within the main time period
Yeah.
of the Empire fracturing and all of that.
Yeah.
But I think the purpose of the story is actually is not going to have anything to do with the saga, right?
Yeah.
Like everything so obviously from what I've heard of the show, we haven't seen it obviously, but
Kind of like
the only thing is there's going to be the Empire is going to have a presence just because they're splintering, and this Imperial officer or whatever has this contract for the Mandalorian to do,
Yeah.
but otherwise it seemingly has nothing to do with the saga.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that has come out with Star Wars that I can think of that is like that.
I think so. In media. Well, not just media. I mean, television, film, media.
Yeah. I mean, even new books and comics and all that still all have to do with the saga.
No, I wouldn't say so. Not necessarily. Like
the Lando comic. I'm just throwing out things directly relating to the saga.
Okay.
Almost all of it
I'm
has to
trying to
do with
think
the
of a-
saga.
I would say Thrawn doesn't necessarily have to do with the saga, even though Anakin's involved
I guess.
and Vader's involved. It's, I don't know. That seems more separate to me.
But to me, almost because it falls within Vader's history, like it doesn't count.
But did it influence Vader's history at all?
To be determined. I mean,
I guess.
And
That's the thing.
specifically because Thrawn had a hand in them getting out into the unknown regions, and working with the Emperor. It has fed threads to get the saga to where it is.
I guess that remains to be seen too.
In a giant story, in a giant timeline. Speaking of it that way, still
that remains to be seen too. Is if Thrawn did help plot a course out to the unknown regions, but was he involved in what was actually out there?
And he was in Rebels and all that.
I guess.
So he had a more direct hand.
I'm thinking more in terms of like the events of Rogue One directly influenced the main story
In film.
In the film, yeah. Solo.
But if you look at the larger story,
the events in Solo directly influenced how Han Solo developed as a character,
right,
in the main story.
But if you think about all the other media, like books, like the Thrawn books and stuff like that, all feed the film storyline, right? It gives you extra to add into the story. It's like, oh, now I have more information than I would have had by just seeing the movies. It doesn't really matter if you only see the movies and never read that, because they give you what you need for the movies to exist.
Yeah.
But from my perspective, right, like it's awesome to like, here's all the little details about the story, about how much Thrawn had to do with getting them out into the unknown. Like it feeds into that plot.
I guess
it feeds into that giant plot line.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I can see Mandalorian being the first thing to not have anything to do with that.
Yeah. I could see that.
Like the existence of the Empire is the only thing that follows back to the main saga plot line, but otherwise it's going to be a separate story that just happens in the universe.
But yeah, but even now, I mean, the Empire's disintegrating during this timeline.
Right.
So it's not even like you've got that tent pole.
So maybe the Mandalorian will be our first like true feeling of having something Star Wars that's not overtly Star Wars.
Maybe.
But depends on how. But to me, almost it depends on how heavy the Imperial presence is too, because then that makes it feel too easily Star Wars.
Yeah.
Whereas whatever Ryan's wanting to do sounds like it's going to be like it's within the universe, but it doesn't have anything to do with the Empire or First Order or Jedi or Sith or whatever. Because then that's a totally different story of, I have no frame of reference for that.
I could see it being like you know how the DEA in Breaking Bad was kind of not really the main villain a lot of the times, but it existed.
Yeah.
And other drug dealers and the cartels and stuff were mixed in there equally or more as villains for Walter.
Right.
I could see it being like that, where the Empire could show up at some point and get mixed up and stuff, and
have nothing to really, but not be the
main
driving force of anything,
villain like it is in the other movies and shows and stuff.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting to think of too. After this movie, there may be no presence of Empire or First Order. There may not be that thing anymore. That thing that's always been widespread and evil may be completely gone.
That's the thing, though. We still have the conflict. Kind of. I mean, in the first place, it was political. I'm thinking back to like the collapse of the old republic, and
trade embargoes,
and the rise of the Empire and all that stuff. That all kind of came out of the Force a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a political conflict, but it was also stirred greatly by a Sith.
Right.
In the dark side of the Force.
So if you have no presence of that anymore.
Well, but I'm saying you're still going to have the Force influencing people in whatever this new thing is.
Right.
So there still could be a big conflict and villains and
but you have this villain. That's fine. That's just like that could be literally any TV show. But it's Star Wars. How does it feel Star Wars without having the Empire?
I don't know.
Or even not having a lightsaber.
It has to be connected to some sort of either history.
At some point, it has to not. Like they have to move on to something that doesn't have to do with. I think that's what they're wanting to do. Is they want new Star Wars that has nothing to do with the story we've known so far.
Think about even Star Trek. That's always been connected to a linear sort of.
It always connects
thing.
Back.
Yeah, there's always, even whether they go before the original series in the timeline or after the original series, or even if they break off into a new timeline like the movies. There's always There's always references to what's been before, and there's always this context that never really goes away.
Depending on how far you go away from it.
I think if they separate, if Ryan or whoever separates too much from what's already been created, it's not Star Wars
anymore.
Yeah, so I think there's got to be some type of context that.
It's interesting. I mean, it's just it's hard to think about what is Star Wars if it's like what makes it Star Wars if it's not tied to something.
Yeah,
that we have a frame of reference for. But can you make a Star Wars movie and have it not tied to any of this and just have it within the universe and the Force be the tying factor?
Yeah. I don't know.
I have no idea. It depends on how cleanly wrapped up this movie is too. If 9, like the First Order's gone, the
assuming that what comes next,
the balance
comes after
has
9.
Balance has been, assuming it's after that. Assuming balance is finally reached, and that's, I mean,
do you think the New Republic will be reestablished?
Would hope so. I would.
Or do you think something separate, something new will be created?
Like, like universal force Christianity, where just the balance in the force has just made everyone
universal
has made
church?
everyone good. Yeah. Just the balance of the force is just everyone suddenly fine. There's no bad anymore.
Was it us? We were talking about how these new movies, they're going to be so new and different. They're going to go so far into the future that it comes to Earth.
It's just us. It's just normal times, but with the force.
Now it's just a normal movie, like a rom-com or something.
But with the
but
force.
It's still Star Wars.
But every once in a while, there's just like some kind of force of something.
That's new Star Wars. Is just stories here now.
It's you've got mail, but with the force. Don't ask me how.
Occasionally.
Yeah, just you just gotta pick up flowers and they just float to your hand. There's little things here and there.
Nothing. No one acts or
no.
reacts.
It's totally normal.
Yeah.
That's just how things work in this universe.
Everybody has a little bit of a superpower.
Yeah. No one's perturbed when you cut fruit midair and take bites out of it. And it's horribly CG'd.
And bites just disappear instead of being chewed.
It's like you said, it's a rom-com. They go out on a date and it's at a pod race. Who cares? It's just, things happen. It's a normal, everyday thing just for those things to be happening.
Well, if anybody out there has opinions on what is Star Wars,
you shouldn't.
Because that's why we are here.
They're only allowed for us. No, I mean,
we've got the microphones.
I am definitely interested. It just, what makes it Star Wars if it's not the saga or tied to the saga? Because everything has been, and so it's so hard to have any frame to even conceive something not having to do with that.
Yeah, I don't know where to start other than the Force being the only connecting thing. But yeah, I don't know.
It's weird to think about. And like I said, maybe the Mandalorian will give us a better picture of like, okay, it doesn't have to have, I don't know,
lightsabers,
right.
Jedi, Sith.
Because we've talked before, like
Skywalkers.
Right. Because this Mandalorian thing seems like more of the Underworld movie. Yeah. Not Underworld the movie, but like the Underworld of Star Wars. No, there's no lichens or whatever. But the Underworld of Star Wars, almost like having that
the crime world.
The underbelly that we haven't really gotten to see too much of. It seems like the show that finally gives us more of like just that, because like that is a very specific thing in Star Wars.
Yeah.
The crime syndicates and all of that and the bounty hunters, and it doesn't have to have the Empire or Jedi or lightsabers or the Force.
But again,
it still is very specifically Star Wars and feels like Star Wars, and you can tell an entire story with the crime syndicates that don't have to do with the Empire or anything else, and that be an interesting thing and very much feel like Star Wars.
Yes, but because it's in that
because it's been referenced
canon that we know already.
Yeah, right.
Like we have canon about the crime syndicates, and that those are fixed.
Right. That's what I'm saying is you can have stuff like that we know of just because it's been given to us in tastes here and there before.
But that's what I'm saying. Is this new trilogy going to have that kind of a thing, or is it going to be completely start from scratch new?
Right. Like not reference anything
I would say
it would have to reference something.
Yeah, right.
But it could. I mean, the new movies could be getting completely away from. Depending on what happens in this movie, it could be getting completely away from Jedi or even the Force.
Assuming that these are after
Force users.
Assuming that these are in the future, after it could be.
Well, I feel like anything that happens prior to, Rise of Skywalker.
Oh.
Any movie that ever happens prior to the Rise of Skywalker is in such a specific timeline where it has to be fed by the Empire being a thing or the First Order being a thing.
Unless you go way
back, and then you've got basically the rule of Jedi for like the last hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Where the Jedi are prolific at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So then you've at least got that there's just the Jedi are a thing that everyone's aware of for the longest time until they're finally overthrown by the Empire.
We could end up getting like the creation of the Jedi story,
Right.
like proto Jedi Sith type
yeah.
things. That could be interesting.
But I feel like even it feels like anything prior to Rise of Skywalker has to do with Jedi and the Force and the Empire or the First Order or something, because that is just what controlled the
That's what we know.
galaxy. Or just that was
Yeah,
what was
yeah.
that was just like that was the main thing that was happening at the time in the galaxy.
Right.
The Empire was in charge of everything, or the First Order was overrunning everything, or the Jedi were in charge of everything.
Right.
Only until after the Rise of Skywalker there might not be any of those things anymore.
Yeah.
There may be no Empire, no First Order, no Jedi. I mean, there's not going to be a Jedi Order, I suspect. The Force it will still be a thing. I don't think the Force is going to die, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at that point, there's no prolific thing that is the reference point for all other things that are happening. Because, like you said, even in Solo, the Empire was still this big thing that was happening. The Empire was in charge, so all the things that happened in Solo still had to do with the Empire.
Yeah.
But
they may not have directly influenced that story, the Skywalker story, but they directly influenced one of the main characters.
So if anything takes place after Rise of Skywalker, there may be no reference point like that.
Yeah.
So how do you have a movie after Rise of Skywalker that doesn't reference any of those things?
With brand new characters.
It's just in the new world. Basically, it's in the new world where there's balance in the Force, and there may not be a big bad yet.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what do you even do? What do you tell about?
It's a whole new world. It's a dazzling place that we never knew.
Don't you dare close your eyes.
Don't you dare close your eyes. I want to see a movie about the Great Sith War.
That would be interesting. That's what we talked about before. There being either something like that coming from the Game of Thrones guys, either like we said, like the Knights of the Old Republic or the Jedi Wars or the Sith Wars or something. It seems like that would be in the wheelhouse to do.
Yeah.
But again, very specifically Star Wars.
I mean, that's another great conflict type thing, similar to the Clone Wars or the Reign of the Empire, where you could there's a lot of opportunity for story in that.
Right. And yeah, there is a lot of opportunity for story just within the constraints of what we know.
Yeah.
But if Ryan's wanting to do something completely new with different characters in a different place,
what could that be?
How can that?
Right.
How can that be? Not what can it be?
How?
How can that be?
How have you done this?
Right. It's just it hurts to think about. I don't like it.
Tell me how. How do you do this? How do you write a movie? Where do you start? Do I need a notepad?
Bullet points, please. Yeah.
What is a movie?
just start interviewing people about a film. So I've heard about your new film you've made. Tell me about that. Oh, so it's a movie about no. What is a film? Please, can you just describe this?
And you make it?
So the pictures move?
How?
So you made this film.
You made the pictures?
What tools did you use? What materials?
Which hammer do I need?
What number nail do you use to make film? Oh, we're dumb.
All right. And we're done.
How long was that?
We're dumb and we're done.
How long was that?
That's
Talking about
enough.
one very specific thing.
Close enough.
That's pretty good.
If we had ads, we could fill time until an hour.
No.
You want to read an ad?
just go on Google and just read the first promoted link. Is that what you want?
So we click on an ad so somebody else gets paid for it.
Right.
But we're reading the
Someone
copy.
else gets the ad click where we're reading the copy. Oh no. Yeah, nothing else really Star Wars has happened. There's just lots of rumors around 9 that have
lots of books that we haven't read.
Lots of books, so many books. They're just piling up. Master and Apprentice I still haven't read. I haven't read Queen's Shadow. I'm most of the way through Leia, Princess of Alderaan. Alphabet Squadron comes out in June.
Thrawn comes out in July.
Yep, Thrawn, was it Treason?
Yeah.
What it's called? Thrawn Treason comes out in July. Oh, I guess since last episode, the Journey to Rise of Skywalker
yeah.
book series, like the whole line of books was announced, and I guess there was only one adult novel listed, which was interesting, but it's about like Poe, and in the time of it's when they're trying to, because I'm totally missing this off the top of my head. It's when they're trying to rebuild the Resistance.
Yeah. Hold on, I'm
Um,
pulling up the title here. Resistance Reborn.
Yeah,
In this journey to Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker novel, Poe Dameron, General Leia Organa, Rey and Finn must struggle to rebuild the Resistance after the defeat at the hands of the First Order in Star Wars: The Last Jedi.
right. So it's this book that takes place basically between Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
Probably in that time period that the time jump's going to happen in,
Mm-hmm.
telling us basically how they've rebuilt because they were down to about a dozen people at the end of Last Jedi.
Which is interesting that they're leaving that up to a book. I guess there's a lot of stuff they can't cover in Rise of Skywalker.
Right. So specifically.
That comes out in November.
Yeah.
There's a handful of other books that look pretty cool. Some young adult books.
This is a very interesting one about a force sensitive character, some guy that like goes around. It's like he's like looking for force relics or something. Just as an idea, I think that was neat. Just having it's another force user that we don't know.
A restless teenager sets out to discover what connection his mysterious force powers have to the fabled Jedi.
Yeah.
And what the force has in store for him.
Yeah, so it's just
called
like
Force Collector.
Unknown force user. Just so like Broom Boy, there's other people that have these abilities that they don't know what to do with.
Right.
And it's just kind of the story of one that has these abilities and is trying to figure out what's going on.
And this is set before The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Just
So
before
there's
Force Awakens.
There's other people out there that aren't Jedi and aren't Rey that got involved in all this that are trying to figure out what's going on with their bodies like any teenager.
In October, we're going to have a 4-part miniseries comic called Allegiance.
Oh, yeah.
Where basically it's Leia right after, as she's struggling to rebuild the Resistance, Leia turns to the Mon Calamari.
Right.
To try to,
Get
drum up some...
Get them back in.
Some hardware.
Yeah, because they always provided pretty much all the capital ships.
Uh-huh. That sounds...
Trying to get them involved again.
That sounds like an interesting series. Handful of young adult stuff, some kid stuff.
Handful of young adults. Is that that's what I thought you were about to say?
That's one of the titles. Oh, that's not Star Wars. Sorry, that's just another
wrong tab.
Make sure I clean that up before we record. Okay.
Yeah, there's. I did find it interesting that there was only one novel, like one adult novel listed.
Was that the Resistance Reborn one?
Yeah. I thought there'd be more than that, honestly. I guess we also have Black Spire Outpost. That novel's coming out by
by the Phasma Delilah Dawson.
Delilah Dawson, yeah. That's coming out too, but I think that's later. Or that's soon, isn't it? Is that in May or June?
I don't know, because we haven't really heard anything from that.
Because I would think that would come out before the park opens. Or maybe it's later. I don't know. Look it up.
Why you gotta
give us an answer?
Gotta spell it right first. Alpo.
Alpo. Alpo.
August 27th.
Oh,
so
so
pretty
like,
much right as the park opens.
Yeah, right.
Or
2 days
for
before
Orlando.
2 days before it opens in Orlando.
You gotta read it real quick before you go.
Jeez.
Something else we were talking about too was I like how, because there's a handful of guides that were announced.
Oh, yeah.
Like ultimate guide type stuff. I like how we're gonna start getting the same type of books that we had from the expanded universe that cover like all the characters and weapons and vehicles.
They can put out a full book now
of all the stuff in the new trilogy, or even new trilogy and
full
all old stuff.
Saga.
Yeah,
just saga collections of
of just tasty details.
Breakdowns of.
Just let me slurp up those details.
like the cross, like the ship cross section stuff and all the stuff that no one else cares about.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that's true.
there's
So,
a
lots of
handful.
books.
There's a Art of Rise of Skywalker book that was announced.
Right.
That's going to go on sale in December, and then the Visual Dictionary with cross sections that goes on to sale in December also. A couple days after the movie comes out.
Yeah, be on the lookout around November, early December for screenshots of
For leaks. Yeah.
for leaks from those books from people that have gotten them early, because a lot of that happened with both The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
All right.
Another thing, real quick. There was a magazine announced called The Official Movie Special, an in-depth collector's edition featuring material from long-awaited the all-new Star Wars movie.
Someone needs to clean that up.
This is on StarWars.com.
Great.
Featuring material from long-awaited the all-new Star Wars movie.
And still no word about that leaked Kylo Ren book, which is interesting.
Kylo Ren, what?
So there's that Kylo Ren book that someone posted the Black Spire book on the like Random House or Del Rey website, but the actual description of the book was a book that said like confidential, do not release, and then had a bunch of information about a Kylo Ren novel. And that still hasn't been announced, which is interesting. Because that sounds like something that would come out with Rise of Skywalker, the Journey to books, or maybe after, I guess.
Yeah.
To give us a whole story after we find out what the deal actually was with his life.
That's something we've talked about on here before.
It's got to happen. It's got to happen after all this is done. We can finally get all the stories that they couldn't tell us until they wrapped them up.
How was he seduced?
Just want to hear how that teen
Tell
was
me
seduced.
your seduction tips.
I just need to read about those seducing teens from one old man to the next. That's basically what happened. In a nutshell. There's some details missing.
Are you saying, as yourself, from one old man to the next, speaking to Snoke,
No.
how do you seduce a teen? Is that what you're saying?
I just want to know how Snoke, as an
Come
old
here,
man,
come here,
was
just
able
come
to
over here, just
seduce
real
a
quick.
teen from
From
another
one old
man
to the next. How do you seduce a teen?
Yeah, that's the question I'm asking.
Okay.
That's really it.
Just making sure. Handful of young adults isn't sounding so weird now, is it?
So if you want someone else's nephew to be
So let's
with
say,
you,
hypothetically, you have a handful of young adults.
and like one of them is this guy's nephew, and you don't really like this guy, but you really want the nephew to like be your buddy.
Your special buddy.
Yeah, just
that
like
you show
like,
special things.
do whatever you say and obey you. Really just a real good friend that does whatever you want.
Especially won't kill you, no matter what happens.
No, and he brings other young adults to you that you also want to be your special buddy.
Real young. I'm talking real young.
Oh yeah, like fresh out of the desert, young adults. How do you get that nephew first?
Wrapped in swaddling clothes.
Oh, great. That's recorded and that's going to be packaged up and sent to the FBI post haste.
Just straight there. Just
Straight
turn
to-
ourselves in.
Yeah.
Here you go.
You know what? We just got to tell you this happened and we're sorry.
And we know what has to be done now. So go ahead, just take this. Here's my things.
Here's all of my belongings.
Here's all my money.
Oh no. Oh no. All right, that's more than enough of the young adults and this episode.
Handful of young adults is definitely the
Yeah, that's
episode
the title. Oh no. All right, well, if you like this episode, please go on iTunes or whatever other place that allows you to rate it. I don't think anyone else does, because why would you rate anything other than on iTunes?
We've reached rating saturation at this point. So go tell a friend about the show and have them rate us.
Yep, do that. If you want to talk to us, answer our questions, give us questions to answer.
Answer our question.
How do you get these young adults?
We've never.
If you have ideas about how to get these handfuls of young adults, you can reach us at asklobot@hokireligion.com
Or even better, send us a tweet.
at hokie_religion.
.com.
.com. Sure. Yeah. Those are the places you can contact us. Yeah, if you
Answer our questions. Send us an email and say, what are your questions?
We have so many
and
questions.
we'll give you our questions.
How do you make a film? That's one of the questions for
How?
this episode.
Which hammer?
How do you get the young adults? That's another question from this episode. There are so many
How do you
questions.
get the young adults to make a film?
That's a hard one because it doesn't seem like they're
Or
doing...
at least be in your film. Let's just get them in front of the camera.
You're not gonna we can't pay them. I'm not gonna pay them. Just like I have this film. It's just for me.
Let's just get you in front of the camera and see what happens.
Yeah, let's just get you comfortable.
Every plan needs a step one. Just get in front of the camera. And then how do you do the rest?
Oh no.
It's getting worse.
If for some reason you really like what's happening here, please stop listening to us. We don't want your patronage. If you don't support this, but you do support us, you can go to patreon.com/hokireligion.
If you want this kind of stuff to stop, give us money. And we'll talk about real things.
Pay to make it go away. Just making it worse. Oh no.
That's what the young adults said.
Yeah, always.
All right.
I think that's it. I don't think there's anything else that we could possibly say to make this worse than it already is.
I think that's
For episode 95, this is Tyler.
This is Michael.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Hokie religion is an ancient weapon. Hokie religion is an ancient weapon for no match for a good blaster at your side.